All right, so today we're going to be doing a Roman Emperor tier list. This is not something I've normally done. Usually, the videos on this channel are pretty heavily scripted and heavily edited, and I spend quite a bit of time on them. But I'm working on a much longer project, so I figured I'd have something to fill the void so YouTube doesn't get too mad at me. I mean, I don't have many subscribers to put into an uproar. But regardless, we're going to try this out. I know tier lists are a bit overdone, but I always enjoy watching them. So I figure why not one for the Roman emperors? First off, I am not a historian of great note. I have a degree in history, but what does that mean in 2025? It's just a piece of paper, and I went to some classes. But I am a huge fan of Roman history. I've spent quite a bit of time in Rome over the years with studying and whatnot and hanging out. But regardless, we're going to do the tier list, and we've got the normal tiers for you guys. Well, I actually gave them fun names. You can delete the names. I'm going to go ahead and share the whole tier maker deal with you. So if you want to make your own list with these emperors, you can go ahead and do that. I'll put it in the description below. So with S tier, Eternal Caesars, these are guys who oh yeah, they're big deals, well known in a relatively positive manner. So even people who don't know Roman history whatsoever might have at least heard of this person before. Big names, and at least were good at their job to a degree. All these guys are going to be questionable characters. It's 2,000 years ago, and it was the Roman Empire, so everybody had a little bit of a warped moral compass, for lack of a better term. Imperial pillars. These guys were solid. They kept the empire going. Kind of a remarkable Roman man. Ambitious, did a good job, expanded the empire, kept things running, maybe a good military commander, good at administration. So just somebody who did good things, lots of building projects, not too bad. B is the Pax Keepers or Peacekeepers. These are guys who they did their job. Nothing too crazy happened. Kept everybody in line. Maybe they have some detractors, which we'll definitely see. Maybe some people tried to mess with them a little bit, but overall, the empire didn't fall apart. They weren't assassinated like a lot of these guys are going to be. Just kind of did their job, kept it cool, kept everything on track. Just a middle of the road guy. Well, I shouldn't say middle of the road because the next tier is mid-tier monarchs, C tier. Again, these are guys, pros and cons, so maybe they have some good things about them, maybe they have some bad things, maybe they didn't get enough time to really show off their prowess as a Roman emperor. D tier, this is going to be, it's starting to not look good. So seeds of decline. So things are starting to go downhill. Their actions as emperor negatively impacted the empire. Now, there's going to be some of these guys who were barely emperor for any time, and I might put them in the last category rather than seed the decline. But basically, if you're in forgotten footnotes, which is the last category, I guess I'm skipping ahead to it, you might also deserve to be in D or F. F, Emperors of Infamy. These are the classics. A lot of known emperors might be in this area right here. Whether it's from movies or video games, but the bad guys, right? The classic evil Roman emperor, crazy guy, emperors of infamy. So not necessarily the fall of the empire, but they're a terrible human being. Now, granted, I'm using a lot of ancient sources and just in my readings and studies and whatnot for the information from this. So there's bias. Again, we're going to use Suetonius, who wrote the 12 Caesars, does not like to paint a good picture of, say, Caligula and Nero. I'm going to take him at his word. Granted, it could 100% be made up or just propaganda to bring down that emperor. But we're using what we got. So if you have a different way you want to rank the list, if you're a seasoned historian who knows the Roman Empire top to bottom and you think they deserve another spot on the list, go for it. And then finally, forgotten footnotes. They are the guys who are kind of at the bottom of the tier. just maybe they were emperor for a week or a couple months and just in and out. Nothing crazy there. Just footnotes of history. This emperor reigned for 3 months, and then expect a lot of guys from the crisis of the 3rd century and onward to be in forgotten footnotes. These are guys who they're forgettable at best, or we don't even really know much about them. And I say we as in me. I'm sure there's some Roman historian who could tell you what they were doing as a 7-year-old, but just kind of a casual Roman fan, a fan of history. They're just kind of brushed over throughout the history books. So without further ado, I know that was kind of a long intro, so I apologize for that. Let's get right into it. And we'll start with chronological order. We're going to go from Augustus to Romulus Augustulus. We're only doing the Western emperors. I'm not making a huge giant list of all the Eastern emperors after going into Constantinople. So we're going to start with Augustus. I think this one's pretty obvious. Augustus, the founder of the Roman Empire, for lack of a better term. The first emperor doesn't ever call himself emperor, just first princeps, which basically means first citizen. So kind of like plays off the Republic's still here, the Senate's still going strong. But he lived so long that people get kind of used to him being emperor, which maybe is the reason the rest of the emperors are able to kind of like fill that void, because people are used to that strong man. But establishes the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, which, I mean, is as peaceful as Rome can get. Again, he still has like he loses a bunch of legions in the German forest, Teutoburg. I think I'm saying that correctly. Give me back my legions. But still, overall, found city, or what's his quote? I found Rome a city of clay, and I leave it to you a city of marble. So very, august. Literally the term August comes from Augustus, the month of August. So he is definitely, he's eternal Caesar, S tier. He's like the emperor you picture when you think of a Roman emperor. Well-oiled machine. And I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's an S tier emperor. Now, granted, was he the greatest family man ever? No, he definitely had some troublesome relationships with his sibling, or with his sister, as well as his own children, especially his daughter. But like occasional strategic purge, I mean, it's par for the course. The grandnephew of Julius Caesar takes the reins and establishes the Roman Empire. So I don't think there's any other place for him other than S tier. All right, on to Tiberius, the adopted stepson of Augustus. And I am a little, I don't know. Right now, I want to put him in B tier. Now, a depraved individual, to say the least. I'm not going to go into crazy details, but you're welcome to look it up, read Suetonius, and he did some questionable things on the island of Capri. Was definitely kind of a conspiratorial guy. Did not really even like being emperor. Was just kind of the man for the job. Apparently he was a pretty savvy military general. Was constantly at odds with the Senate and the Praetorian Guard and the other elites of Rome. But like the empire kept chugging along. He's also notable because he's the emperor during the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So that's pretty notable. I'd be interesting to see if he actually knew that was going on. I don't know if there's... if somebody knows if Tiberius was informed about... I doubt it. I don't think Pontius Pilate was writing in letters. But regardless, Tiberius, we will... maybe he's C tier. I don't know. I can't get past the Capri stuff. Granted, that doesn't have anything to do with his rule, but he's still literally kind of living in exile. Not official exile. I'm going to keep him at C tier. We'll see who else goes in there. But yeah, I mean, he kept things going. So I think he's like the definitive C tier. We'll go with that. We'll go with C tier. Our next fellow is definitely not C tier. Definitely not mid tier. Probably the most infamous, or tied for the most infamous Roman emperor, and that's Caligula. Was there ever a doubt? We're going to go right into Emperors of Infamy, F tier. Just kind of a bad dude. um, the son of Germanicus, and Germanicus, I think, would have made a great emperor, a revered general. I think he's poisoned, but he dies. His son Germanicus, or excuse me, his son Caligula, which isn't even his real name. Caligula just means little boots, and they called him that at the camp because he wore little boots. So Caligula, it's stuck. But he's definitely he's a despot. He's a bad dude. He was sleeping with everybody's wives to the dismay of every party involved, minus himself. So lots of debauchery. And yes, he's gassed up from movies and just kind of pop culture. And Suetonius does not paint a good picture of him. He makes his horse a senator or a priest. He declares war on the ocean to get back at Neptune. So just a lot of absurd antics and not a good guy. Um, he's just like an unpredictable, crazy emperor. The iconic, like, this guy's batshit crazy. He had his cool barge though. He made a giant floating palace. So that's cool. I think he's the guy he builds a bridge out of other boats to cross the water there. So that's neat as well. So a lot of fun, cool facts about him, but just a depraved individual. It's said that he like delighted in like sadistic behavior. So we're definitely going to put him in F tier. Just not a good dude, not somebody you would want to live under, that's for sure. But ultimately, I think everyone agreed because he's butchered by his own guards. So he is killed, thankfully so for the people of Rome. And to follow him up is Claudius. Good old Claudius. And I am actually a Claudius stan. I'm a big Claudius guy. I'm putting Claudius up in Imperial Pillar. I think he is a solid emperor, and he's the second best Julio-Claudian emperor. Everybody thought he was kind of an idiot, just like a bumbling cripple. Um, and just, I mean, he walked with a limp. People said he stuttered. As somebody who stutters from time to time, like, I take offense. So Claudius was holding up the fort for us, but it's said that he's found hiding behind the curtains after the death of Caligula, and they basically just make him emperor because they think he's going to be like roll over. But he's actually a very savvy, intelligent man. He was a historian, he was a writer, so he knew a lot of things. He just kind of played quiet. Um, he got the economy going. He was a much more level-headed administrator, especially compared to his predecessor. Um, Kind of untangled the bureaucracy of Rome. He conquers Britain. So the lower half of Britannia, and the eventual establishment of Londinium and all that, and just establishing a new part of the Roman Empire that is going to later become the largest the largest empire the world has ever seen, the British Empire. That's Claudius. So I think he got a bad rap in his time, but I think in hindsight, I'd way rather live under Claudius than most Roman emperors, to be honest. His biggest mistake is his choice of women. Unfortunately, he kills his wife, I think, and then marries his cousin or his niece. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody remind me. Agrippina, I think that's her name, correct? So he marries Agrippina, who then poisons him and kills him. So really, his biggest fault is his preference in women. And then she puts her son on the throne, who we'll get to in a moment. But overall, I'm a big Claudius guy, so let's go Claudius. All right, up next, Nero. I mean, again, Nero. We're gonna put him down in F tier. I mean, is there ever a doubt? Again, you could say like, well, he's misrepresented by the ancient sources. Well, everybody thinks Nero. I mean, heck, there's some people that think Nero was the Antichrist. Just a bad dude, put on a throne by his mother, who he then kills. He also kills his wife. Their old story that he stomped on her when she was pregnant. So just a terrible guy. Then he goes as far as after Pompeia, his wife, dies, he wants to find a replacement, and there's this slave boy named Sporos, and Sporos kind of looks like her, and Nero goes about literally trying to make Sporos, this male slave boy, into Pompeia. Um, so I'll let you fill in the blanks on how that happens and what goes on there, because I don't want to get this video demonetized if it ever has the chance to be monetized. But yeah, not a good dude, and Sporos has a very horrible fate. Wouldn't want to be Sporos. He got dealt a really, really bad hand. But again, you have the Fire of Rome, which Nero was technically apparently in Greece, so I don't think he started the fire, but he definitely used it for political gain in his persecutions of the Christians, which is said that he had Christians crucified and lit on fire, and it was like the street lighting in Rome for a period of time. And then he uses the fire, which burned down a lot of regular people's houses, not to give them back their houses, but he goes ahead and basically just builds his giant Domus Aureus, his palace, the Golden Palace, in the ruins of everybody's house. So, I mean, again, he's an artist. He likes the theater and drama, and I do think he gets a bad rap when it comes to his theatrical skills. Everybody says he was horrible, or at least the sources do. I gotta think he was a little bit better than that. The guy was practicing all the time. I think it's more like, well, he's a really bad dude, so let's say he's bad at his favorite thing. But I don't know. I don't have a time machine to go here and play the liar or perform a play. But regardless, he's made a public enemy of Rome. If that doesn't say an emperor of infamy, then I don't know what does. He runs off. He has one of his own slaves basically take his own life from him. And oh, what an artist dies with me, his famous final words, and very dramatic. Who knows if he actually said it, but in the end, Nero is definitely F tier. Probably pick up the pace here a little bit because I kind of dove into the Julian Claudians. And now we'll go on to the year of the four emperors, and we're gonna put Galba, Otho, and Vitellius all in footnotes. I mean, it's just a power struggle in 69 AD or 68 AD, 69, 68 AD, somewhere around there. The year of the four emperors, you have the power struggle. Galba, Otho, Vitellius. Vitellius is my favorite because apparently he was this big fat guy who loved to eat, and he actually makes fun of, I think it's Otho, but maybe it's Galba. Looking at their statues, Galba looks smaller than Otho, but Vitellius basically says, oh, look at that, a small tomb for a small man. And then Vitellius himself is dragged down the street and stabbed, and he gets a big tomb for a bigger man. So that's good and fun, but they are basically just footnotes of the year of the four emperors. And up next, we've got two emperors who are a father-son duo, which is more rare than you would think in a imperial kind of king system. But we've got Vespasian. I think Vespasian, I think he's higher than I don't know. I think he's higher than Claudius, but give or take there. I think he's an imperial pillar. Now, Vespasian, he's the one who emerges from the chaos of the year of the four emperors. He's a no-nonsense guy. He even taxes urinals. So he basically is like, well, we got to make some more money, especially after Nero is just spending the coffers like nobody's business. He's like, we got to make some more money. Let's tax the urinals. So I guess if you were a Roman, you go to the urinal, you give them a quarter, which if you go to Rome today, there are bathrooms. You got to pay €1 to use the bathroom. I think it's quite prevalent in Europe to give them €1 to use the bathroom. So Vespasian is still holding strong, but he had the quip, money doesn't stink. So Vespasian, he starts building the Colosseum, the Flavian amphitheater. We're into the Flavian dynasty now. So Vespasian, I think, is a solid leader. His final words, I really like his final words. I think I'm becoming a god. Now, Vespasian, I've got an A tier. I'm actually going to put Titus. I think Titus is S tier. Now, I think there's definitely some debate. Maybe you might drop these two down. But Titus he's one of the few that still has a standing arch in the Roman Forum. I think that gives him some cred. He opens the Colosseum, has the first 100 days of games. He sacked Judea. Granted, that happened before he was emperor, but it still plays into his legacy. So the Second Temple is destroyed under Titus, which I mean, I guess is a bad thing if you're Jewish, but it definitely puts him on the map. And he opens and everybody knows the Colosseum. If you don't know anything about Rome, you probably could recognize the Colosseum. Opens the Colosseum. It deals with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. There's also another great fire of Rome that he has to deal with. So he deals with a lot during his relatively short reign. I think he only reigned for about 3 years, but in that time, I mean, he locked in. So I think he has a lasting legacy from that. So I'm going to put him in S tier. Maybe in hindsight, I would have put him in. No, he's staying in S tier. I like Titus. He's got an arch. So it's literally the arch you walk in right when you walk into the forum. So definitely Titus is staying in S tier. All right, we got Domitian next. This one's interesting. Domitian's a mixed bag. I don't even really know where to put him, to be honest. So he's the younger brother of Titus and the third Flavian, so Vespasian's other son. Definitely a wild card. I'm gonna stick him in mid-tier monarchs for now. I'd put him over to Tiberius, I guess. But he's a very interesting guy, kind of an iron-fisted guy. Apparently, he wanted to be called Lord and God. I don't know the Latin for it, but that was like he was like, I'm gonna be called this. So very iron-fisted, a disciplinarian, would always whip the Senate into shape. Also a bit of a kind of a persecutor, especially of Christians. Very fond of the gladiatorial games. But he was also like a paranoid individual. He exiled and executed senators. People didn't really like him. He's definitely, I mean, he's the downfall of this dynasty. But maybe I should put him in D tier, but I still think that, I mean, he reigns longer than both his dad and his brother who followed him up. But maybe I should put him in D tier because it ends the Flavian dynasty. Yeah, I mean, I hate to do it. Well, do I hate to do it? He was kind of a, I don't really hate to do it. He's dead. This is a a tier list in 2025. Domitian's gonna be mad. But yeah, I mean, he's an interesting emperor for sure. But yeah, we'll put him in D tier because I mean, he literally the next guys are called the five good emperors, so we might as well. Yeah, Domitian we'll put in D tier, but he's on the higher end of D tier that I'm almost considering him putting him in C tier, but we'll keep him in D. Oh, and Domitian is assassinated, so like that again, that tells you. Well, it doesn't really tell you. A lot of these guys are assassinated for no reason. Even some of the great ones, which we'll get to some here soon. But yeah, Domitian, we're going D tier. Nerva, the first of the so-called five good emperors. And I think Nerva is almost like the honorary mention that kind of leads into it. He wasn't a military man. He was in his 60s, so an older guy, kind of like your chill grandpa who's also running the Roman Empire. They needed someone safe, the Senate did, after the assassination of Domitian, so Nerva comes on to play. I think he's like the definition of just like a peacekeeper. Keeps everything running straight. Nothing too notable, nothing too bad. Just kind of kept the empire modest and unassuming. Didn't conquer anything that I know of. So we'll put Nerva in the B tier. Again, kind of the weakest of the five good emperors, which we'll get into now. And this is basically the high water mark we're getting into on this tier list. After this, there's going to be very few that top the level we're going to get at now. So we'll go right into my personal favorite emperor, Trajan. So Trajan is kind of like that guy. He's him. He's the Roman emperor. Other than Augustus, he's He's not as well known. Like if you just say Trajan out in the street, people aren't going to know. But the empire gets to his biggest expanse that he conquers Dacia. He even sacks the Parthian capital of what the heck is their capital called? Starts with a C. Ctesiphon, something like that. But he's a builder. He's a conqueror. The empire is strong. It's powerful. He builds Trajan's Forum. If you go look at Trajan's Column in Rome, I mean, it gives you the whole story all the way up to the top, which is under construction right now. So I was there about 2 weeks ago. But there's like just a big ad for, hey, this is under construction. But I'm a big Trajan guy. He's even got, there's a bridge in, I shouldn't snap on camera. There's a bridge, Trajan's bridge over I think the Danube. So Trajan's a cool guy. I'm a big fan of Trajan. Definitely S tier. I mean, you could definitely argue. No, I'm putting him before Augustus. Augustus kind of got the keys to the Ferrari from Caesar. Trajan had to follow up Nerva set him up pretty well, but at the end of the day, Trajan is Trajan. I'm a big fan. So we're putting him in S tier. Hadrian, we're going to go right up there. I don't like Hadrian as much as Augustus, but Hadrian, again, he kind of took the mantle from Trajan and he kind of swaps out conquest for defense. So he built Hadrian's Wall, dividing the Isle of Britain, Scotland, and England. So builds Hadrian's Wall. He goes on a grand tour of the Roman Empire. He's a big Greece guy. He loves Greece. What is his boyfriend? Can't think of his name. Antonine? I want to say Antoninus. That could be totally wrong. But his boyfriend that he has becomes like the most sculpted face in ancient history. So he's a big purveyor of the arts. They redo the Pantheon, which is awesome. One of my favorite buildings in Rome, originally built by Agrippa. So one of my favorite buildings. Hadrian he's a good emperor. He's also the first emperor with a beard. So if you've got a beard, and then if you look at all the emperors after this, you'll see they got beards. So Hadrian is a trend setter as well. So Hadrian S tier, solid emperor, top to bottom. Best offense is a good defense. All right, up next we've got Antonius Pius or Antonius Pius. Again, pronunciation. He ruled for 23 years. I feel like he's a peacekeeper because it was an extremely peaceful time. But I feel like he almost deserves more because of how peaceful it was. Just kind of he didn't really do much. He just kind of hung out and peacefully reigned and was a diplomatic guy. And he's not very well known, so I'm not going to put him in S tier. But I'm going to put him in A tier. Even though he's a peacekeeper. And maybe I should put him in B tier. But I think because he was so long and he didn't even lead a military campaign. He was just chilling. It was like just a peacetime president almost. But for 23 years, or I think it was 23 years. Just kind of chilled out. So we'll put him in A tier. All right, next. Well, I got Marcus Aurelius here, but I'm actually going to do Lucius Verus first because he died. They're co-emperors. So we got our first co-emperors. We'll put Lucius Verus. He's a bit more of a party guy. And actually, Marcus Aurelius gets all the credit. And he's also a philosopher, so that's going to add some bonus points for him. But Lucius Verus, he was a military guy. He was on the front. He was keeping the barbarians at bay. I think he did a solid enough job. He does die before Marcus Aurelius. But I think he held the fort down. That's for sure. Beforehand. And he liked to party. Who doesn't like to party? Now, Marcus Aurelius, another very, very well-known emperor. I'm going to put him there. Now, I'm putting him below these three because I think he's the weakest of the three, of those four. He's the last of the five good emperors because, well, he has a son. So I don't think he's a great dad, but he is a philosopher. He's well known. I mean, heck, he's in. Who plays him in Gladiator? Oh, that's gonna bother me that I can't remember his name. Is it Donald Sutherland? It might be Donald Sutherland. That could be way off. I could be thinking of the guy from Pompeii, that movie with Kit Harington. But regardless, Marcus Aurelius, he writes his meditations. He's on the border wars, Gladiator, all that fun stuff. He's the iconic philosopher king. So I've got to put him in S tier. He's got an awesome statue as well, a great head of hair, as well as Lucius Verus. They've both got the curly look that comes up in the right around the this time. What is it, like late second century, or early second century? They got a good like a fro look going on. So that's fun. Marcus Aurelius will go S tier. Commodus. I'm actually not a Commodus super hater. Um, I like him more than these two. I'd rather live under Commodus than Caligula and Nero. Get over here. I like how he was a big gladiator guy. He was, I mean, Joaquin Phoenix just like looms over Commodus for me. That it's hard for me to see him other than Joaquin Phoenix, just because like Gladiator was one of the first films I got into that got me into Roman history. But he's just kind of like a dude that's crazy, thinks he's Hercules, likes fighting the arena. Apparently he fought ostriches and cripples, so I can't imagine it was the most challenging battles. He even one of the gladiator types. I did a video on this. It was like they stood on platforms. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but Commodus would be one of those guys. But he's so infamous because of the movie. I have to put him in F tier. Also, I mean, he probably wasn't a great dude. Again, kind of the classic Roman despot, crazy guy who's going to be emperor. And he ends the five good emperors. He has to be an F tier. I mean, I could justify Seeds of Decline. But he ended the golden age. Everybody hates him. They have him strangled in the bath. One of his girlfriends has her and this other guy. They hire a wrestler to strangle him out in the bathtub. So we're gonna put him in F tier for sure. Pertinax. He got kind of cool. Goes from zero to hero. He's lowborn, so that's cool. But he's only emperor for like 3 months. So forgotten footnote. Didius Julianus. He buys the Roman Empire at auction, if I'm not mistaken. But again, dies really early. So we're gonna go with again, footnote, a year. I can't give you more if you only rule a year. Presidius Niger, another guy. What does he do? I think he's captured and executed. So all these guys are like executed. Yeah. It's basically, and then Clodius Albinus, another guy, forgotten footnote. I mean, I'm not going to go into him too much. If you want, you can go watch my video on all the Roman empires. I touch on them all. Okay, Septimus Severus. Okay, here we go. We're going to break the forgotten footnote train. We're going to go to Imperial Pillar. Septimus Severus, kind of a hard iron soldiers general or soldiers emperor. Basically, like the buck stops with him. He kind of turns Rome into an almost more military monarchy than it already is. Maybe not the best guy, but considering the circumstances of Commodus kind of just screwing the pooch and ruining everything for the Rome's golden age, and you just have four back-to-back, like whatever emperors, Septimus Severus at least steps up, enrich the soldiers, scorn all others. So he was a military man, and paved the way for like keeping the legions happy. So they would agree he was an imperial pillar. And then he drops dead of sickness, so he's not assassinated like the last like four or whatever it was. All right, now we got the brothers, Caracalla and Geta. Both of them are interesting. Caracalla has Geta killed, so right off the bat, you've got a little what is it? Fat fratricide when a brother kills a brother, like Romulus and Remus almost. So they're both like I would say they're both in Seeds of Decline. Now Caracalla, maybe I'll bump. Yeah, let's put I love the baths. I love Caracalla's baths. It's one of the like more underrated tourist attractions in Rome, or historic sites, I should say, not tourist attractions. But heck, I'm a tourist too. So Caracalla has Geta assassinated in front of their mother. So maybe he's more of an emperor. Yeah, now I'm talking myself into. Yeah, we'll put him in Seeds of Decline. I feel like I need more mid-tier monarchs, but it is what it is. I like those damn baths. We're gonna go put him in mid-tier monarch. You can put him wherever you want. Now Caracalla is a mean guy, lots of temper, brutal purges, just an overall not very good guy, and so the baths are really holding me off, moving him down. However, no, his own bodyguards kill him, don't they? And I'm thinking of the new Gladiator 2. So the next three emperors, Caracalla, Geta, and what's his damn name? Who's next? Oh, Macronus, who's Denzel Washington. We're gonna go ahead and put Macronus already in Forgotten Footnotes. I almost want to put him in Seeds of Decline just because people now know his name, because of Gladiator 2. But these three right here, I would say they're just kind of like three in one. Now, Macronus is not really what they make him out to be in the movie. He's the first lowborn or the first non-senatorial Roman emperor. So he was never a senator, right? I guess. So a but he was still a bureaucrat. But didn't have any battlefield experience. So I think this is fair for these three. I don't know. This whole part's a mess. Again, this is going to get messy. I'm going to try to go quicker because we're probably like 35 minutes in, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll keep chugging along. Okay, up next we got a fun one. This is actually the guy who has Macronus assassinated. He does not die in a river after a battle like in Gladiator 2, but Ealgabus, I'm probably saying that wrong. This guy's a crazy cat. He's like a teenager, but he's weird. He's odd. He worships like a sun god. He's a cross dresser. Excuse me. I think he wants to be a woman. I think he offered up the empire for anyone who could turn him into a woman. He marries multiple women. He tries to marry a Vestal virgin. He has these crazy unhinged banquets where he's got lions and tigers eating among the people. There was a banquet where he tried to make people eat rocks. The Empire was basically his personal circus. It's basically a confused, wild teenager in charge of the most powerful empire on Earth. So much so that he was an annoyance to everybody, and that his own grandma actually like solicits his assassination, and he is drowned in the toilet of all places by his own guards. All right, next we got Severus Alexander. He actually had a pretty decent reign, especially for this period. I'd say he's a mid-tier monarch. He was a total mama's boy. His mom, Julia Mamaea, I think that was her name. She was kind of like a overdeering helicopter mom of ancient Rome. Kind of wore the pants for him. Definitely, like, he had good reforms, and he had to clean up almost knocked the mic over. He had to clean up a crazy mess left by his predecessor. So, I mean, wasn't dealt the best hand, but I think he's mid-tier. Ultimately, he tries to bribe a barbarian tribe, which doesn't go over well with his soldiers, and they kill him. So tough scene there for Severus Alexander. Next, we have Maximus Thrax. And so this whole period we're getting into, there's a bunch of different emperors, like, fighting and killing each other for power. But I'm a big fan of Maximus Thrax. So despite the confusion during this period, I'm actually a Maximus Thrax guy. I mean, I'm not putting him up. Whoa. I'm not putting him up here, but I like him enough. I like his story. He's a giant. He's a large and in charge man. He's a soldier. He's about 6'8" or something like that, which is giant for the time. I mean, it's still big today. But the average height's like 5'5" back then. So this guy's huge. Apparently, he was wrestling guy. He was the wrestling champ. Just a mass of a man. Apparently knocked a horse out like Arnold Schwarzenegger does in Conan. I guess he knocks a camel out. But Maximus Thrax, just kind of a big bruiser of a man. Uh, but he was a bit frugal and kind of squeezed every coin he could um, out of the rich. And ultimately, like, he's on campaign trying to fight other emperors who are fighting for power at the same time. The Gordians, who we're getting to, and Pupienus, who's a fun guy. But he gets killed by his own troops. So Rip Maximus Thrax, large and in charge until he wasn't. So we're going to put him in C tier just as like honorary. It's probably more of a forgotten footnote, but I like Maximus Thrax. Next, we've got the Gordians. We're going to put them together. We're going to put them, they're going to be footnotes, but basically Gordian the First is offered the emperorship, but he's 80. So he gives it to his son, who's younger. So they're kind of like co-emperors. But Gordian the Second gets killed in battle, and Gordian the First then undoes himself from there. So they're gone. So that's them. All right, up next we've got two more co-emperors. So a lot of co-emperors in here. We've got Pupienus. Pupienus, what a name. Pupienus and Balbinus. And these guys were kind of co-picked by the Senate to be the emperors. Again, the Senate gets a bit more power during this 3rd century. We're into the crisis of the 3rd century now. So we're in it. But Pupienus, he's kind of assigned to take down Maximus Thrax. He manages to do that, but him and Balbinus are bickering the whole time. They just don't get along very well, and ultimately, they don't last very long. So again, we're going to put them here. We're not doing any specific order in this bottom row. We're just going through it. Up next, we've got Gordian the Third. Now, of the Gordians, Gordian the Third is probably, I'm going to put him in mid-tier monarchs. Now, he's a puppet emperor for sure, but he's also 13 years old. So, well, maybe I should put him in Seeds of Decline. He's 13 years old. He's a puppet emperor, but he does reign longer than the last, like, 6 emperors. And he eventually is conveniently removed by his successor, Philip the Arab. But ultimately, I mean, Gordian III, Seeds of Decline, I think is a fair spot for him. Especially compared to the fates of Gordian I and Gordian II. We've got Philip the Arab. This guy's cool because he has a cool name, very different than most names. Philip the Arab. So hailing from the Arabian region. And he actually gets to host Rome's 1000th birthday party. So that's pretty neat. Throws on this birthday party, lavish games and festivals. He reigns for about 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. So not a terribly short reign, especially in the crisis of the 3rd century. This is like a marathon of a reign. So gets to host the party. Eventually, he is killed in battle. And he does have Gordian III killed. So not a great guy, but he gets to host the party and he's killed off. So I think he deserves a C tier mention. Very mid tier, especially when it comes to the bar set at the crisis of the 3rd century. We're doing okay for ourselves if we got a C tier emperor. All right, Decius, forgotten footnote. An abhorrent persecutor of Christians, is cut down in battle. He's one of the first Roman emperors to be killed actively in battle. So that's kind of neat. But again, that's the most footnote statement ever. What else do we know about him? He's just not a great guy. But we'll put him in footnotes. All right, up next, Trebonius Gallus. This guy inherited a complete mess of an empire, plagues, everything in between. Um, had a 2 year reign, so I mean, not a long time. He agrees to pay off the Goths instead of fighting them, so that's notable. I want to put him in Seeds of Decline because I don't think he's as footnotey as the rest. They eventually stab him after this event when he agrees to pay the Goths off instead of fighting him. So he's a bit more notable. But again, the decline of the Roman Empire. We're paying off these guys now. We used to crush these guys. So definitely see the decline. Aemilian, forgotten footnotes. He ruled for 3 months and is killed. All right, Valerian is going to be our first Emperor of Infamy. That's not really because of him, more so of how he is killed. So he invades Persia, Parthia, whatever, and is captured by Shapur the First, and he is basically turned into human furniture. So for a time, he's just like the Persian or Shapur's footstool that he like uses to get to higher elevations. But eventually, he's flayed alive and then stuffed, and used in plays and stuff. So if that's not an infamous way to die, I don't know what is. So we will put him in Emperors of Infamy. Valerian has a terrible, terrible death. Maybe the worst death of any Roman emperor. Captured, humiliated, brutalized, and then flayed and turned into basically a humiliating war trophy. So yeah, tough scene for Valerian there. Gallienus, the son of Valerian, basically just spent a lot of time trying to clean up the mess that was going on to varying degrees of success. Ultimately, he is also killed by his own men, so we'll keep him in Seeds of Decline. Claudius Gothicus, he actually gets a victory over the Goths, hence his name. So we'll actually put him in mid-tier monarchs. He gets a little win, which is a rare achievement for 3rd century emperors. So we'll take that. Good job, Claudius. And he's another Claudius. We like Claudius. Quintillus, he literally is killed like weeks into his reign. So forgotten footnotes. All right, here we go. Aurelian, back to the top. We're only going here a few more times, but I'm a big Aurelian guy. So Aurelian is the shining light, which is kind of funny because he makes himself, he's a sun god of worshiper. So one god, he's a monotheist. He kind of is like the one magnet that kind of pulls together the crisis of the 3rd century. You've got Gallic Rome, which is rebelling and they have split off, and you've got Palmyra, so kind of the Middle Eastern region. They have split off as well. And Aurelian comes onto the scene. He only reigns for about 5 years, and he just kind of whoops everybody into shape. Military brilliance, sheer willpower. Aurelian is kind of like just the light in the darkness that is the crisis of the 3rd century. So he crushes the Palmyrian Empire. He fortifies the empire, and everything is going awesome. It looks like we've got the guy back in. We have him. And ultimately, he is assassinated by disgruntled officers, which is just a tough, tough scene once again. So rest in peace, Aurelian, a valiant general and valiant emperor. And I'm putting you in S tier. Maybe that's a bit bold and a bit higher than you should be, but I always remember playing Total War. What's that DLC for Rome 2? It's like the Crisis of the 3rd Century DLC, and it's a lot of fun. I always remember playing as Aurelian and reunifying the emperor or the empire. So, yeah. So Aurelian has a soft spot in my heart, and that's why he's going into S tier. You may disagree. Well, the follow-up from Aurelian's assassination was not good for anyone because people liked Aurelian. He unified the empire, as I said. So nobody really wanted to take credit for being the next emperor because they were going to get blamed for being the guy who killed Aurelian. So they throw this guy Tacitus in there, who's in his 70s. And ultimately he just dies from exhaustion or assassination. Either way, it's a short, forgettable reign that nobody really cares about. Florinus, another speed run of an emperor. I'm not even gonna. What did he do? I don't remember. But again, footnote forgotten. Okay, well, Probus, he's an interesting guy. Probus was a big fan of wine, which I am as well. So he reinvigorated the Roman like vineyard community and kind of like reestablished the wine production. He was also big into construction. So he actually makes the legions. He's like, well, why are you guys fighting all these wars? Let's build some things. We're the Roman Empire. We build. So he gets construction going. The wine is flowing. However, the legions didn't like this, and a few disgruntled troops end up killing him. So there's another one. But Probus, you are going to get C tier because I do love me a good glass of wine, and I respect that. And he reigned for what? 6 years, something like that? So not too bad, all things considered. Ooh, Carus. Carus is cool. He's almost a footnote emperor. He's struck by lightning. So basically, he's campaigning in the east, and he is struck by lightning and killed. But I like the fact that he's struck by lightning so much. I almost want to put him in Seeds of Decline. Yeah, come on. Getting struck by lightning is tight. It's not. It's such a footnote fact. Oh, I'm having a mental crisis right now. D tier or forgotten? Where will you go, Emperor who's been dead for almost 2,000 years? We'll make him the top of the footnotes because he is struck by lightning. But he was doing pretty well out there. So, give it to you, Cars. We'll give it to you. Numerian, he is Cars' son. He goes out there to try to pick up where Cars left off. He develops an eye infection, and ultimately they're carrying him in a litter, and they think he's alive, but he's been dead the whole time, and he starts to smell bad, and they're like, oh, what the heck is that smell? And they look in there, and they're like, oh, damn, like, he's dead. So that's Numeria, another footnote. All right, Carneus is Numerian's brother and Carus' other son, and he's a bit more impactful because he actually reigns for a bit longer than the other two. He's partying back in Rome while his dad and brother are out in the east. He actually marries 9 different women and divorces all of them. So he's kind of like a Henry VIII predecessor. Just kind of a wild guy of debauchery and corruption. So we love that. I'm going to put him in Emperors of Infamy because I don't think he's well enough. He's not known well enough. But ultimately, he is assassinated by a general or an officer who he cucked in the past. So that's very interesting. Assassinated by that guy who he stole his wife. What are you going to do? So that's Carneus. We'll put him in Seeds of Decline just to kind of break things up. We got a good list going. A little balanced. See, it's a bottom-heavy list. All right. Diocletian. I got to put him back up. We're going back to not to the top. I don't really like Diocletian because I think he's kind of a brutal persecutor of Christians. However, he did establish the Tetrarchy. He does overhaul the empire. He establishes he allows Rome to last longer than it did. So it divides the empire into 4 with 2 Augustuses at the top with subordinate Caesars in the east and the west. He is a very brutal man. He's ruthlessly efficient. I respect him. And I respect that he retired. So he's one of the few emperors, he's one of 2, I think, that retires. So he just kind of gets bored and retires and goes and grows cabbages. But he saved the empire. You could say he ended the crisis of the 3rd century. So I will put Diocletian begrudgingly at A tier, even though he might be the most evil persecutor of Christians in the Roman Empire. Even more so, I mean, you have Nero, who gets a bit more of a bad rap, but Diocletian, I think, probably killed way more Christians than Nero did. So we'll put Diocletian at an imperial pillar because he did save the empire during that time. So now we're going to get into a bunch of co-emperors. It's very confusing. I did this in my video. I kind of just did one by one when I covered all the emperors in a more rapid fire fashion. If you're still with me now, God bless you. So we're going to go into Maximum or Maxinium. I don't know how to say it. I love his sculpture here. He also retires. I'm going to put him in mid tier. He's just kind of there, crushing rebellions, fighting barbarians. Again, Diocletian, he helps restore kind of some of the prestige and balance things out. So Maxinium kind of benefits from that and kind of just goes along with it. He is eventually forced to retire. He hates retirement. And he ultimately takes his own undoes himself, takes his own life. But yeah, not the worst emperor. Definitely proves that retirement isn't for everyone. All right, Constantine Chlorus, kind of one of the better tetrarchs. He is Diocletian's Caesar in the West. He subdues the Picts in Scotland, but most notably, he's the father of Constantine the Great, who we will get to shortly. And I'm going to put him as a peacekeeper. I mean, he fought a lot of wars, but I think he's a solid, kind of just, especially with all things considered during the time period, I'm going to put him in peacekeeper, B tier. All right, up next we have Galerius. He's an interesting one because he is actually Diocletian's he does a lot of the dirty work when it comes to the persecutions of the Christians. So not a good dude. Kind of keeps peace in the East, but I think overall he's kind of pulling on the coattails of Diocletian. Excuse me. And I'm going to put him in Emperors of Infamy. Somebody has to take the fall for Diocletian's persecutions, and I'm going to make Galerius do it on this list. So take that, Galerius. But God gets him back good. He ultimately dies of a terrible bowel infection where apparently he's just on his deathbed for weeks. Just his guts rotting from the inside. So just a horrible death for him, for a horrible man. Severus II, another one of the tetrarchs. He's killed by his own guys. Not much to say here. Forgotten footnote. Maxentius. We're going to put him in Seeds of Decline. We'll talk about him for a second. He is basically the emperor who challenges Constantine the Great. He's the one who drowns and dies at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. The famous battle that kind of establishes the Christian path Rome is going to take. He does have a lot of building projects in Rome. There's a lot of ruins still from Maxentius. He has his own circus in Rome on the outskirts by the Appian Road, which I've visited myself. It's pretty cool. I'm actually going to move him to C tier. Kind of give and take, but again, a persecutor of Christians his entire life, but does sign on to the Edict of Tolerance in 311. So we'll put him at C, mid tier. All right, Constantine the Great, Constantine the First. This is going to be our final S tier entry, and it is because of his impact. He is the one, Edict of Milan, legalizes Christianity, ends the persecutions. Not really the most Christian man for most of his life. He doesn't convert till his deathbed. He boils one of his wives alive. He kills multiple family members. But under this sign you will conquer, Battle of the Milvian Bridge, kind of adopts Christianity as maybe a means of power. But regardless, the impact is still felt today. It's the most commonly followed religion in the entire world, Christianizing Rome and ultimately Christianizing Europe and much of the world today. So Constantine the Great has got to be an S tier, just for his impact alone. Um, One of the few standing arches in Rome is Constantine's Arch. Rome at this point is a crumbling capital, so he makes a new capital, Constantinople, which will be the seat of power for the Eastern Roman Empire, which will last another 1,000+ years. So Constantine the Great has to be S tier. I don't think there's any argument. Otherwise, he's an eternal Caesar. He's still remembered today. His wife and his mother, both Christians. I think his mother's even a saint. His mother or wife. I think his mother is a saint, if I'm not mistaken on that. But again, not baptized till his deathbed, but Constantine the Great. What else can I say? Maxinius Daia, another kind of forgettable guy. He's the last emperor to be referred to as Pharaoh of Egypt, so that's kind of neat. But again, a footnote. Licinius, the co-author of the Edict of Milan, so I think that gives him something. But again, kind of just a footnote. Eventually, he's a rival, but he kind of gets overshadowed by Constantine. So again, if we were reading a big article about the Edict of Milan, he might just be a footnote. So Licinius, I'll move him up in the footnotes. If that gives him, I'm not putting him above Carus. Carus got struck by lightning. That's cool. Crispus, he is the eldest son of Constantine the Great. Had a lot of good victories during his career. Ultimately, he's killed by his father, Constantine the Great. So again, a very unchristian-like act of Constantine. But Constantine regrets this, and that's what leads him to boiling his mother, his wife, alive. So not a good look for Constantine, but I think Crispus is like a mid-tier guy. He did have a longer reign before his ultimate downfall, so I'll put him in C tier. Constantine II, the middle child, I believe, of Constantine the Great. A lot of infighting with his brothers. Constantine wanted his sons to rule equally. The next one we'll talk about is Constans I. Probably D tier for Constans, and then we'll put his brother as well. Again, we've established a new Roman Empire. We've got Christianity on the rise, but ultimately these guys are just fighting and killing each other. Lots of fratricide. So we can't give them a lot of credit for that. But they're both executed and both killed in brutal manners. And we'll do the same with Constantinius II. He'll go into D tier as well. Again, lots decline. Lots of, like, Constantine set up. The reason he's S tier is because of the impact of Christianity. Not so much how he left the Roman Empire as is. Just like, I mean, his sons had a lot of problems, so that's tough. Yeah. Julian. Emperor Julian is the last pagan emperor, so that's interesting. Again, Julian the Apostate, that's where he gets that nickname, because he is the last pagan emperor. But again, nothing too notable. Again, a lot of infighting with the Constants and Constantines. I know it's confusing, but we'll put him in D tier as well. Jovian, he inherits the empire from Julian. It's a complete mess, and unfortunately, he doesn't do much to make it better. He might have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. There was an oven going in the building he was at the time, a leaky oven. And they obviously didn't have carbon monoxide. They didn't change the batteries. So he passes away from that. But again, another blink and you miss emperor. I might even put him in forgotten footnotes because, I mean, it's basically just a footnote about his death. Valentine I, I'm going to move him. You know, he had a lot to deal with. Not a great time to be emperor. Very strong-armed, a very angry man. It said he was always enraged all the time. He was just angry, and so much so that he actually dies from a rage-induced stroke, I believe, or seizure. I think a stroke. But again, just an angry guy. He was yelling at barbarians and just got red in the face, and his veins were probably popping from his head, and boom, he's dead. But did well during the time he was in charge. He was in charge for almost 11 years, so he did have that run where he was trying to get the empire back on track and was a strong military leader. All right, Valens. He was literally described by a biographer as what was it? Utterly indistinguishable. So we'll put him in forgotten footnotes. But his rule is marked by basically the beginning of the barbarian incursions to a point where they would never recover in the West. So it failed. He was emperor for quite a bit of time, but ultimately you have major barbarian encroachment from here on out. Gratian, he takes the throne as a teenager. Actually does okay during the first bit of his reign, but ultimately he kind of, and another thing that leads to the fall of the Roman Empire is the use of barbarians as like the main military force. So Rome begins to kind of use barbarians rather than Romans. I mean, at this point, they kind of have to. I mean, they're coming in, they have to pay them off. It's lots of bribing and whatnot. But Gratian does promote Christianity, which helps him out a little bit. But ultimately, he is executed after promoting these barbarians. It makes him wildly unpopular, and he is killed off. But we'll put him in D tier, see the decline. Valentinian II, I think he becomes emperor, co-emperor to Gratian at the age of like 4. But he's basically just a puppet. Granted, yeah, a 4-year-old isn't doing much. So we'll put him in forgotten footnotes. All right, Theodosius I. He is the last emperor to rule both the West and the East. This is where we're going to stop talking about Eastern emperors because this video will be 5 hours long. I already think it's too damn long, but here we go. Theodosius is going to be maybe our last above D tier. Nicene Creed. So makes the official state religion of Rome Christianity. That's huge. Sets Rome and Europe on the path further towards Christianity. So Theodosius, I definitely think, is an impactful imperial pillar and ruled for a good 6 years. Ultimately, the West is going to start to fall after this, but he does set up the East nicely. Nice enough, I guess. Honorius, one of the worst emperors ever. The first emperor to oversee the sack of Rome in like 800 years. So Rome, barbarians are charging in. There's rebellions and all sorts of stuff going on. Honorius just kind of sits back and chills. He does have a pet chicken, so that's kind of neat. The chicken's name is Rome, apparently. So that's kind of cool, but Honorius is a terrible emperor. He's maybe the worst emperor on paper. Like, at least Caligula and Commodus never lost the city. Honorius has Rome sacked, so I don't know where else he could be other than F tier. All right, up next we have Constantinius III. So while Honorius was doing literally nothing, Constantinius was trying his damnedest to keep Rome together and was holding back as much as he could with the barbarians. After Honorius eventually dies, Constantinius finally gets to power and dies 7 months into his reign. So, or his solo reign. I'm going to put him in mid-tier just to break it up here at the end, but he gave it the old college try. Joannes, he wasn't backed well by the East, so he gets captured and mutilated. Forgotten footnote. Valentine III, he takes the throne as a child, kind of a puppet emperor. He's assassinated by his own guards, which is coordinated by this guy, Petronius Maximus, who plans the whole thing just to ultimately gets killed himself by his own guards 77 days into his reign. So again, look at the bottom. We're a lot heavier at the bottom. Petronius Maximus, he's going to be another forgotten footnote. Avitus, I don't know how to say his name, but he's actually barbarian backed. So he is backed by the Visigoths, which doesn't sound great for a Roman Empire to be a Visigoth-backed candidate, but that's where we are at this point in the 400s, or the 3rd century, or 5th century, excuse me, during the 5th century. The treasury is almost empty. The Roman Senate turns against him. He's forced to resign. Eventually, he dies of natural causes, but we're going to put him in footnote as well. All right, Majoran, this guy gives it one last hoorah. So he's like the last decent emperor, I would say, at least in the West. He tries to save the sinking ship. He was a competent general. He fought off many barbarian invasions, but ultimately he's ambitious, and that makes him an enemy to the Senate and whoever else wants power. And he eventually himself is killed off by a power-hungry general called Ricimer, who has him arrested, deposed, and executed. But he gave it the old college try, so we'll put him in C tier. Libius Severus, complete puppet emperor. Not even going to waste any time. There's not much to talk about anyways, but forgotten footnote. Anthemus, he's backed by the East, but ultimately he again becomes kind of a puppet to this Ricimer fellow. And he too, Ricimer marches on Rome. Anthemus is disposed of. Oberus, another puppet emperor installed by the general Ricimer. They both die of natural causes. Again, nothing too notable. I guess the downfall of the Roman Empire is pretty notable, but at this point you get the gist. Glycerius, at this point the Western Roman Empire is running on fumes. The Eastern Roman Emperor Leo I doesn't even recognize this guy, and that's pretty much it. And he gets replaced by his predecessor, Julius Nepos. But Glycerius, interestingly, doesn't get killed. He is downgraded to a bishop. Excuse me. So at least he's not killed. So he gets to be a bishop. So we'll move him up just because he doesn't get absolutely... We'll put him right here. Julius Nepos, some consider to be the last legitimate Western Roman emperor. He managed to do pretty much nothing. Just a year into his own reign, just a year into his reign, he is kicked out of Ravenna, which at this point is kind of the capital of the Western Roman Empire, and he's thrown into exile and spends the rest of his life powerless. Not that there was much to rule anyways. And then finally, last but certainly maybe least, Romulus Augustulus, the final Western Roman emperor, who loses the empire. So he is a young emperor. It's interesting that he has the name Romulus, like Rome's founder, and Augustus or Augustulus, like Rome's first emperor, because he will be its last. Basically, his name means Little Augustus, and he lives up to very little of Augustus's prestige. His reign barely lasts a year before a Germanic warlord, Odoacer, comes into Rome, marches on Italy, and deposes of Romulus Augustulus. He is sent into exile. We do not know his fate. All we know is that, yes, he will be an F-tier emperor. So there we go. That is the Roman Emperor tier list. Let me know what you think. This is probably way longer than I expected. I had fun with it, though. This is very different than what I normally do, but I wanted to try something new. So I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, God bless you. I'm going to go ahead and post the link if you want to make your own tier list. I probably missed some guys along the way. I certainly did not back this with a lot of research or sources. This was just more for fun. So go ahead and roast me if you want. Tell me I'm wrong about everything and my list is complete crap. But I appreciate you making it this far. And without further ado, take it easy and have a great day. Thank you.